Story 1. I used to get super nervous before any sort of public speaking event. Shaky hands, sweating, nausea, the whole 9 yards. Eventually, I landed a job as a corporate trainer. I was desperate for a job and money, so I just had to get up in a room of more than 30 people every day, present the training material, and answer questions. Honestly, I just pretended I didn't care and faked it until I made it. Now, it actually doesn't bother me to speak in front of a group. If this is a challenge that you are facing, maybe look into local public speaking groups such as Toastmasters. Story 2. I don't remember the people that bombed presentations because those aren't formative memories. No matter how much I bomb this presentation, no one will remember in a month, especially since they are stressed about their own presentation. Story 3. How you prepare is key. Do not write a word-for-word speech. Develop your presentation in the form of questions that you can answer. That way, when you get off of your plan or have a question pop up that you did not explicitly plan for, you are already in the mindset of solving a problem rather than reciting a speech. It allows you to pivot and improvise much more effectively. Story 4. For something that I haven't seen posted yet, know what you have to say is important. Tell yourself that you know what you are doing and that other people need to hear what you have to say. I've attended several research conferences. I noticed the older presenters just do not care and read directly from cards without looking up once. If it helps, it doesn't really matter if you are a subject matter expert with several dozen peer-reviewed papers or a student. I think most people get nervous speaking in front of crowds. Just remind yourself that it's okay. Story 5. It can help if you recognize those physical symptoms, like a tight chest or sweaty hands, not as something being wrong, but rather as your body preparing you for something important. Your stress response isn't as scary if you know it's there to help you be strong if something frightening shows up. Story 6. I thought I was scared of public speaking until I had to do this one assignment. As a generally quiet guy, I thought getting up in front of people and saying stuff was the last thing I'd want to do. However, a switch flipped in my brain at the perfect moment. Just before beginning, I realized that everyone had to be quiet and listen to me and let me explain all those many thoughts that rattle around in my brain. Think of it as an opportunity to get something off your chest. You don't owe the audience anything. They're getting something from your cathartic rant. Story 7. A couple of things that worked really well for me. Dressing up. Personally, when I wear a suit and tie, I feel unstoppable. Knowing that I at least look nice can take the edge off the fear of not doing well. If you can try to memorize or at least be very familiar with the first paragraph or so of your speech. Maybe you don't have time to prepare for the whole thing, but if you can start off strong, you'll feel a lot more comfortable for the rest of the speech. Plus, you'll have made a good impression on the crowd already. Note cards help. Take some time and watch some TED, technology, entertainment, design, talks on YouTube. Find somebody whose presenting style you resonate with, then try to model your style after them. Don't be afraid to admit if you don't know something. If your presentation has a question and answer session, and you get asked a difficult question, it's way better to just say, "I'll look into this and get back to you with an answer," than to just flounder and try to make something up. Hope this helps. Story 8. I remind myself that everyone in the audience is rooting for me. Nobody wants me to fail. They're all on my side. The worst that will happen is that people won't be paying attention, and people who aren't paying attention are easy to talk to without getting stressed out. Story 9. I just say, forget it. What happens, happens. It helps that I have enough self-confidence to either do well in something or make up for it later. The make up for it later part is key because you can be a bumbling idiot and still ask, what do I need to do to make up for this? And then do it as they told you to do it. Edit. I missed the keyword presentations, but my point stands because, as someone else said, people are only worried about messing up their own presentation. They won't and can't remember yours within a couple of weeks. Story 10. Honestly, it is just experience. Speaking in front of people used to scare me. I became a tutor for my college and was paid $6 per hour to tutor other students one-on-one. The tutoring center wanted to start a group tutoring concept for core classes. I was asked to tutor chemistry and would have multiple students in the session. For this, I would be paid $9 per hour. I was excited. The room I was assigned was a large lecture hall, which should have been a red flag, but I was motivated by the pay. I arrived without knowing what to expect and had no plan. I was expecting a few students, maybe a dozen. Students started showing up, and the room kept filling up. I don't recall the exact number, but it was well over 100, and suddenly $9 per hour didn't seem as appealing. I didn't know what to do, so I asked for questions, and eventually the session developed its own flow. I later discovered that the chemistry professors offered students extra credit if they attended my tutoring sessions. I figured that out when students started asking how I was taking attendance to prove they were there. After that experience, I realized some things about public speaking. 1. If I am being asked to speak, chances are people consider me an expert. They are there to listen to my thoughts. It is okay to say the words, "I don't know." Preparation is important. If I am able, I write a speech or presentation word for word and also make an outline of key subjects. I practice reading the speech and review my outline. After that, I can either use the speech I wrote or, having researched the topic enough, I can freestyle my speech using the outline to stay on point. There will often be someone who likes to ask obscure or difficult questions to make others look bad. To handle them, I often use the phrase, "That is an excellent question. I'll have to look into that and get back to you. Please give me your email at the end." Usually, this acknowledgement is enough to satisfy them. If they continue, their peers will usually step in and set them straight. Stories are helpful. Why did I share my story above? Because it helps you relate to what I faced. It makes someone say, "That was probably frightening," but also shows you can get through it. With experience, you begin to learn to read people. You can tell if people are engaged or if they are bored. When it seems like people are losing interest, I'll summarize what I was going to say and finish quickly. Story 11. I always loved speaking in front of people. I got a rush out of being the center of attention my whole life, so I always stepped up to be the designated speaker in all group projects. People loved that I would always volunteer for that part, so they always wanted me in their group. Story 12. It helps me to think that other people, including the audience in front of me, aren't perfect. So why should they expect me to be? I am doing my job to the best of my ability and tell myself to deal with it. Story 13. Put things in perspective. What will happen if you fail or don't do exceptionally well? Nothing. Your life is not in danger. There will be food on your table. You might waste some time, but if you are reasonably prepared, the consequences are small and you can only disappoint yourself. Story 14. Preparation. It sounds like a cliché answer, but it is so true. If I am giving a presentation, I run through it at least once daily for the entire week leading up to it. Another is using a template. I always use a cover slide followed by an agenda slide. On the cover slide, I introduce myself, the topic, and why it is important. 1 or 2 sentences for each. Then, on the agenda slide, I say, "In this presentation, we will cover," and go down the bullets on the agenda. This allows you to prepare easily since you know exactly what you will be saying, and calm your nerves in the beginning since it is very simple points with little room for error. Same at the end. To avoid silence on a question and answer slide, I always have 1 or 2 questions in mind. If I get no questions, I will say something like, "One question I often get about this topic," or however introducing the question makes sense. Then, after that question, I ask again if anyone has anything, and if not, it is okay to move on at that point. I have a few other tips. I got very comfortable presenting after doing a public speaking class in graduate school and actually taking the teachings of it seriously. I will add more tips if people are interested. Story 15. I've had a stutter since 3rd grade. At this point in my life, age 26, public speaking is really no big deal for me. I think it's a combination of some pretty intense speech therapy, involving starting up conversations with strangers in the Boston Common, and already living out some of the worst-case scenarios of speaking in front of a crowd. Story 16. Experience. I've given enough presentations that went well to know I can do it, and I've given enough presentations that went badly to know it's not a disaster. Story 17. Okay, as someone who really enjoys public speaking, I can share some of the skills I use. Preparation. Go through your presentation at least 3 times. Try to time yourself and see where it leads you. Too fast? Just ask the audience for questions throughout the presentation whenever you feel that you are too fast. Too slow? Just drop some of the minor points on a few slides and you are golden. This obviously only works if you know your presentation by heart. Prepare a welcome and thank you slide for the time before you start and after you have finished. Before you start the actual presentation, make sure the technical aspects are working as planned and familiarize yourself with the stage. How does the remote work? Is my presentation working? Where do I stand, etc.? When it comes to giving the presentation, you don't want to struggle with the light switch. Your presentation should consist of bullet points. The actual information should come from you, the presenter. You can include the most important points, but let them appear after you have said what you have to say. Keeps the audience interested, and they won't start reading ahead. Make notes for yourself with the most important information for every slide. If you have confidence in your presentation and understand the topic you are speaking about, you have the most important things covered. Bonus points. If possible, try to choose subjects that interest you. If you can speak about something you are passionate about, you will be worth listening to. If your presentation is ready to go, let someone else look over it. If possible, hold your presentation in front of a friend for feedback. If possible, choose someone who is not familiar with the material. Outsiders are more likely to find mistakes because they aren't invested in the topic and are generally more likely to find mistakes that you didn't catch. The most important part is, of course, practice. Try to hold as many presentations as possible. The first couple of times might be difficult, but you will get better. Practice makes perfect, and that's especially true for anything you do in front of an audience. Good luck. You will succeed with the proper preparation. I forgot one very important thing. Do not try to deliver it like a speech where you have to stay on script. Improvised speech is much more interesting to listen to than someone reading a script. Additionally, it unnecessarily increases your stress level. Story 18, 2 things, preparation and practice. I always have notes prepared about what I'm going to say, and I always practice a full run-through before presentations. I understand that despite having notes and having rehearsed presentations, people still get nervous. The best remedy for this is to present to real audiences a bunch of times. For example, in my case, I do Model United Nations Club and have been to a bunch of conferences. And in Model United Nations, you have to give impromptu speeches to rooms of about 100 people, give or take depending on your committee. Over time, I've gotten used to being in front of an audience, and that's been a huge help for presentation anxiety. And over about 2 years of being in said club, my speeches have become much more fluid and natural. To get more comfortable in front of an audience, present to people a number of times, your family, friends, and especially important that you practice presenting to people your age. Story 19. I think everyone gets a bit stressed, at least anticipatory. I don't worry about it a lot because I don't mind being the center of attention. However, confidence is key here. It might help to repeat mantras to yourself in the days and hours leading up. Something along the lines of, I know this. I can do this. I am the expert here. And the biggest thing to remember is, no one wants you to fail. No one wants you to go up there or is anticipating that you're going to be terrible. We all put so much stock into what other people think of us, when the truth is we are all pretty self-absorbed, so people don't really think or care about what we're doing as much as we think they do. Truly, when you see someone giving a speech, are you really judging them? If they falter, don't you either not notice or cross your fingers hoping they figure it out because you know what they're going through? And at the end of the day, do you give it any more thought? I know I don't. And that's the big takeaway. Being nervous to the point of outright stress doesn't even make sense because no one cares. So it's better to repeat mantras and have confidence because you will get through it. I was in speech and debate in high school, a communications major in college, and I remember exactly 0 of anyone else's presentations. I barely remember mine. It's all very inconsequential. So just get through it. Prepare your best, breathe deep, and have confidence that you can do it and no one really cares. Story 20. Dealt with high untreated anxiety for so long I grew numb to it. I cope by barreling forward headlong in such situations, which has ironically gotten me a reputation of being very laid back and chill about everything. Works well in the moment, at least. The killer is that time leading up to that, where I have time to endlessly think about and dread what's coming and slowly mutate into a human-sized ball of frayed nerves. Story 21. Preparation and my theatrical training. I used to want to be an actor, dancer, singer, so I did a lot of that in middle and high school. So it doesn't bother me when I have to present something to a group of people. I will take any chance to perform, even if it's something as boring as presenting a 15-minute slideshow on why material safety data sheets are very important.